Okay, I'm Tim Ventura, and this is a little more casual interview with Gordon Novell. Gordon Novell has had a remarkable life, tons of life experience all over the place. So we're just going to do things a little bit different this time and start out where we start out. Okay, well, Gordon, now you're on the road today, right? So I should preface that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm driving. Good way to put it. I'm on the 405 right now. Or at least I'm on the I'm on the 118 heading to the 405. Go over and do some work.
Now you just got back. You were less than happy with Rex Webb, right? Boyd Bushman's associate.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps sending me emails, and I keep telling him, he's now saying that we were there to steal his shit and to seize it for Uncle, and that's a crock of shit. I mean, Jim Mars is about as I wouldn't call Jim anti-government, but he's anti-lies or anti-government lies as I am. And Jim's a very patriotic individual based upon what I know, and so for him to do that after Putoff gave him a go sign, and he could have gotten anything he wanted. We were prepared to sign NDAs or whatever, and we were prepared to share information with him, which we certainly have. I don't know about his neutrino beam thing. I tend to believe that I've never heard of anybody being able to get neutrinos to interact with matter. Christ, they fly through the planet like it isn't there, and so far as being able to make a beam of neutrinos, I don't know how anybody does that unless they've got some methodology of focusing the neutrino discharges off of very volatile radioactive matter. The way things are.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know either. I mean, I covered Webb stuff. He had a couple of video clips which really didn't show much, and it sounded exciting, but I was in the same boat you were. Every time you get close, the guy pulls the rug out from under you, and you reach a point where you just get pissed off with it.
Well, you don't. I mean, he picked the fight with me when you waste a week of my time and make promises to me and make allegations, and I start reporting that back to friends of mine in high places, and then you leave me to hang out like that, and just cost me face and time. I get very angry about that. I don't give a damn who you are.
Well, I never. I mean, I don't know what to make of it, but I know I spent a few months there of really trying to get a story, and it's kind of a shame to see David Sereda now. He went on Coast to Coast last 2 weeks ago, and he's in the same boat. He's got half the story, so I don't know, and to have a week of your time wasted too is just kind of a pain, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I sat over at Jim's house, and I appreciate Jim's hospitality, but I had things to do, and I got a burn going on, and I just didn't. You're wasting my money. You're taking my money and you're wasting it. And so Rex made himself an enemy until he apologized. And people who pick fights with me wish they hadn't done it.
Yeah.
It's not. If you got nothing to do with the rest of your life, go ahead and pick a fight with me because I'm unrelenting, placable, and I just don't quit. I mean, I don't. I'm too old to fear anybody, and certainly not Uncle Sam. And these days, my wires to Uncle Sam. I mean, I'm considered somewhat of a patriot around the CIA. So, and I've had wars with them. And I might add they came away very fucked up. So, why worry about them? I'm not afraid of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now, speaking of in the time that he's wasting, some of that's going into a research effort, right? You're working on some breakthrough propulsion stuff.
Yeah, we're at the point of actually building a rig that replicates the phenomenology of the R bird design, and we know that that's real. We know that bird is real. I've written a lengthy report that was what got me on the inside of Langley was my report, which is called Supreme Cosmic Secret. It still is. I haven't elected to publish it, and it describes the history of it, who did it, and where they got it, and how they engineered it, where they flew it, and da 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 da, and how it works and why it works. You know, the right electros, the right electrodynamic circuit dictates or describes the function, and the function dictates the physics. So, you know, I don't get along with Sir Fatty over that and many of the other players because I follow the physics of the function. And ARV is representative of like it's a universal circuit.
Yeah.
You know, all UFOs use the same basic circuit. ARV's a Model T of the damn circuit. We filed all of the necessary patent work, and we're constantly working on that now. And we own the intellectual property. We've properly stolen it from MJ12, and we're not giving it back. And they are not going to come out of the closet, and we don't believe that they can dare come out of the closet and admit how they reverse engineered a UFO and where did they get it and what they one thing and another. Mark Felt, Deep they made it real clear about how they get money, and Bob Woodward and what. And I had already drawn all those conclusions. Watergate was nothing but a giant cover-up of Vietnam, and Vietnam was all about them running the Golden Triangle to get the money for their reverse engineering, because all that alien work at 51 is off book.
Oh, I see what you mean.
All of it.
ARV is Alien Reproduction Vehicle, right? Now, are you doing the same? Because usually ARV people think of Bob Lazar. Is this the same deal that he was working on, or is this something else?
That who was?
Oh, Bob Lazar. Is this the same thing?
No, Lazar is a bizarre, and I don't believe he ever. At first, I don't believe him about anything. I mean, you know, he's like unobtainium 115. I don't believe that there is such a element as he describes it, and that it'll make antimatter, and antimatter is not the methodology of the propulsion. The propulsion energy, as near as we can understand it, comes from time, and time is not space, it's what's manipulated.
Yeah.
And when you negate gravity, you negate time. Time is zero time, the opposite of time. And the universe is duality on everything. There's an opposite of space. There's no space. And the field around these UFOs is no space. So when they allow the phenomenology to push it of the normal space trying to recover its position, and you know, it shoves it, and it shoves it, since it weighs nothing, it shoves it very rapidly.
Well, you know, in terms of our interview, and I mentioned this earlier, I was going to call it 40 years on the inside, because your relationship with these kinds of projects, these kind of secrets, I guess, this is like, you know, you're like the man who looks behind the curtain, I guess, or whatever you'd call it, and you have for what, 4 decades now.
Well, that's because I don't make it being a great physicist. I'm a good scientist. I'm a hell of a good engineer, and if anything that I've done is basically play detective to the engineering drawings that we have, and put the pieces together in a systematic way, and organize the data so that it can be transmitted. I've put all the data on CD-ROMs and spread the CD-ROMs around the world with every intelligence agency's director to science and technology with, on the CDs. And anything happens to me, then the whole story gets out, and I'm sure Majestic doesn't want that to happen. So that's how I've gone about doing it. And they tried attacking me, and then they found out that was going to go wet, and that they were going to be on the receiving end of wet, and they got really nasty in '05.
Well, is Majestic 12 still around? I mean,
it never went away. I mean, it controls the export area 51.
Well, I was just curious if you know. Do you know who? I mean, has anybody figured out who's on it these days? Because the original, they swap people out, right, as they retire and stuff. Does anybody know who the current?
Well, the Bill Hamilton's list of the players seems to me to be adequate to identify them.
Okay.
So, and I've had it corroborated by guys like Dan Burrish and others that corroborated that list for us and actually provided the list. And so we know who is majestic, and they got to put their pants on one leg at a time, and they bleed too. So they're as susceptible to COINTELPRO operations as I am susceptible. Everybody's susceptible to dirty tricks. So anybody can get roped in on that. But there's a point in time where I go wet. You start sticking guns in my face to intimidate me and breaking and entering into my property and stealing my property and threatening my life. I'm going to take your ass apart. And I'm the old fart who can. I can do a lot more than fart on you. I can cover you up and stuff you can't imagine. So the bottom line is, and I'm in good health. I'm in excellent health. I'm into longevity, and I have been for years. So, I'm in my 50s when I'm in my 60s, and hopefully I'll be able to slow it down more.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of what I'm doing.
Well, you've had some
doing a project called Immortala right now. I'm working on to build a resort health spa research center that is like nothing on earth, and has got every bit of the latest technology to extend your life. And we tell our customers, if you want to live 200 years, start coming to visit us once a year. So we're working on building that in Desert Hot Springs. I've got a major league film underway, and we're working diligently to produce a film called Kingdoms Come. And we're doing the RAM project, and I'm into wireless gambling, and got a bunch of patents for that are mine. So I'm busy, as busy as I can be.
Yeah. Now, what's the RAM project?
RAM is Replication Alien Machine.
Oh, okay. That's the ARV project then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't heard about Immortala yet. That's kind of interesting.
Immortala is my project for extending life. We figured out a lot of the ways to do that, and we're doing it in conjunction with some genetic engineering folks in Mexico. We're going to set up an American research center that's part of a giant health spa that's sort of like a Disney World panel. So it's really a beautiful place, very Pleiadian design, all domes, and the suites are all domes. And just really a smart place, smart idea.
Oh, it sounds like kind of 70s era architecture, right? The Age of Aquarius type stuff.
Oh, the architecture we're planning on using is that of Jacques Fresco. He's got the VenusProject.com on the web, and he's, in my opinion, greatest contemporary architect who ever has lived. So, he's going away, not cubist. You will never find a right angle at Immortala. We're eliminating all right angles. The ceilings of the domes reflect, or basically the outside is on the inside. Hot waters, and we've got many longevity concepts for extending your life. So when you come in there, we rejuvenate you, and we show you how to extend your life, and we hope you keep coming back. And it's not a place for lightweights. Children they're not. I don't think we're going to bar children, but we don't intend to cater to children.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's an adult Disneyland, but it's for people who really want to extend their lives and live as long as is conceivable. And we think it's conceivable that in the next 10 years you're going to be able to extend your life to 200 and further. So we're really into that.
No, it makes perfect sense. I mean, well, now in terms of in terms of getting this resort built, are you financing that through the wireless gambling stuff, or is that different
I'm
financing?
sorry, I didn't understand you.
Oh, sorry. Are you financing that through the wireless gambling, or is that something else?
The wireless gambling is separate. I keep all of my operations under a thing called United Systems Developments. And, I've got, like I said, about 6 or 7 different projects going on right now, all of them billion-dollar propositions. So we're trying to make them happen. They're like a bunch of dominoes, and one falls down, and they all fall down. So we're busy pushing on the dominoes.
No, it makes sense. I mean,
The dominoes look like the rocks and stone in, so you got to push hard.
yeah, it's like juggling.
Rock, huh?
Oh, yeah, it reminds me of juggling, right? Because for me, this is stories. You know, you have a bunch up in the air, and you do a little bit here and there, and it's like you're juggling, trying to walk forward slowly at the same
Well,
time.
we've got them all in finance stage now. They're all, most of them are at the point where the business plans is developed to such an extent that we can do them. We're working on our feature film is a trilogy of films about what happens when ET decides to put Earth on trial, and because global warming is a product of them not releasing the alien technology from Area 51. So read ours. And if they done that, and they've been the damn thing according to our photographs since the mid '60s, they could have easily prevented the global warming. At least that's being caused by the carbon dioxide.
Yeah, yeah.
It's probably some planetary heating because of sun conditions, and we're drawing the worst of it at the worst time. But if we can get rid of the carbon dioxide issue and prevent the greenhouse gases from coming out, because the methane is the big worry. I don't know if anybody's told you, but the methane outgassing up in the Arctic tundra and the Siberian tundra and off the ice caps, the polar caps are melting about 30 times faster than anybody ever expected, and they're capable of releasing enough methane gas into the atmosphere to ignite the entire planet.
Yeah, I've read that that might lead to some mass extinctions too, especially in the polar regions and maybe even the U.S. because this methane suffocates stuff, and
Well, it's not only suffocateable, but it's poisonous, and it it can reach high enough content in the upper atmosphere to cause the upper atmosphere. The stuff goes up high enough where it hangs in the upper atmosphere, and when it gets completely saturated up there, and a lightning strike goes boom, and that's all you have to do, and it's going to reach that level, and you have the end of the world. You have an eschaton scenario that's the end of the world. There are a lot of eschaton scenarios around right now. Dan Smith is not totally whacked about that. He's right about it, and they need to be addressed. We need to prepare for them and to know and have plans to alleviate them and end them. I mean, get rid of oil, coal, and gas is important.
yeah,
And the revolution that it brings, we're just going to have to suffer it. Whether it's going to be a utopian planet or something else, but our indications are that you get rid of oil, coal, and gas, and you've lost about 80% of the cost of doing business. If you can cause things to fly with no cost for energy and have great lifting power so that a barge can fly over a grain field and pick up the grain and fly it from Kansas to Paris for no cost, then you've eliminated the cost of distribution to a great degree, and you've eliminated about 90% of the cost of doing business, which is really critical to. This truck is about to try to kill me because he's going in the wrong place with a big truck. But the bottom line is that you eliminate the cost of doing business, and the world changes dramatically. But the problem is all of the information and science that we've been able to pull up, and the reverse engineering and the analytical work on the alien technology indicates that that the time paradoxes are going to be really the biggest problem of all. You know, how do you have stock markets and interest and bonds and taxes and voting if you know the future before it occurs?
Well,
And apparently, the evidence is they know the future before it occurs. So, as far as we're concerned, we're trying to get resolutions to the paradoxes, because it's the paradoxes that are the real reason the signs at Area 51 say no trespassing, lethal force authorized. They are well aware of the paradoxes, and they may have studied them and found resolutions, but they may not like the particular resolutions, because of the power that is lost in the process. And bankers don't, 80% of the income of banks comes from the transactions on energy, and the balance comes from mostly the transactions on distribution, because distribution is 20% of the economy.
yeah.
So when you have that, you eliminate it to the degree that it can be eliminated, then you really got a phenomenal condition of potential utopia. But
Well,
the rich don't want to share the wealth. They don't want they don't care about the kids that die every day. I mean, they die by the thousands daily from malnutrition and just hunger. So they don't care.
yeah.
And as I tell the generals and the admirals, look, General, if you keep it going, you're going to end up being buried with your children and your grandchildren in the same grave. You can find somebody to dig it.
Well, I guess I guess I should ask what you think about the war in Iraq right now. I just got a letter from my brother. Because he's in the 82nd Airborne, and they just lost 9 guys that he's close to, which is kind of a new level.
That's why Rex. That's right. When Rex Webb promised me that he had a technology to strip off the electrons off of the mass and could cause explosives to go inert, I really went after that with a purple passion, and that's why I spent my time, because I don't generally wait around a week for an anti-grav experiment. And but when he said he had a solution to IEDs, I went bananas about that, because that would allow us to extricate ourselves with honor and dignity out of Iraq if you could stop the IEDs from being used. And it would push terrorism down, because you couldn't even, the suicide bombers could no longer function. So I really got interested in doing that. And when he didn't do that and didn't demo it, he made big statements about how he'd walk through a field over mines and this, that, and the other thing. I said, show me. I'm from Missouri. So, but my position on Iraq is very simple. I've been arguing, and it's well known, and in very high places, that I was totally opposed to it. And I told them, I said, you're going to end up causing the biggest disaster you've ever caused, because these people will insurgency you, and they haven't been able to find democracy in 8,000 years. What makes you think you're going to be able to shove it down their throats with a gun barrel?
Well, and Sarfati seems convinced that we're going to go to war with Iran at some point too, right?
Well, if Iran continues to threaten Israel, first, this is all huffing and puffing, all right? Because Iran is not stupid. They know that the Dismona reactor is made up enough plutonium and uranium that there's probably 200 nuclear weapons in the Israeli arsenal that are air deliverable from the F-16s and the F-18s, and that they can get them in there, and that they can make a wasteland out of Iran. So Iran destroys Israel, Israel destroys Iran, and Iran, when they're going to have a lot of nukes, and it doesn't take a lot of nukes to destroy Israel. It only takes a few nukes. So you knock out Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Haifa and places like that, and there really ain't much left. So it's a very, very, it's a postage stamp country. So the bottom line is that the Iranians are. I've always thought that they were nuts ever since they seized our hostages in the embassy. I was deeply involved in trying to get the hostages out, and actually have worked for the Iranians to get a hostage out of Beirut at one time, and I was successful, probably the only person in America ever was, and I was paid by the Ayatollah to do it because it was a hostage that had been taken by Hezbollah that wasn't supposed to be taken, and they were having a fight, and he needed somebody to get their attention, and I was chosen to do the deed, and I went and got the hostage. But the hostage taking in Iran, I tried to make a deal to get their money back and get the hostages released, and about $10 billion. Worked very closely with the Iranians on that, and so I'm well wired into Savama, their intelligence apparatus, and or have been in the past. I don't know how good I'm considered over there these days, although Ramsey Clark is still liked by them. But as far as Ahmadinejad, I think he's nuts to be saying I'm going to build nukes and I'm going to obliterate Israel, because that's, he's hurting Iran by doing that. I mean, what does he need? What does he need nukes for? I mean, he's got all the oil in the world, so he's got 18% of the oil, so he doesn't need nuclear reactors. And to say he needs it for energy, that must be a very long view he's doing. And if he wanted to have a peaceful nuclear reactor thing, there are ways that he could go about that would allow him to have nuclear power without weaponizing it. But he is, as long as he keeps making noises about obliterating Israel, I personally am not a fan of Israel. I'm Jewish my father was Jewish, but my mother was not, so I'm not Jewish by that logic or by their logic. But I'm not a fan of Israel. I don't think that the Israelis have been much better than the Nazis about how they've operated with the Palestinians. So they took their land, they made a country out of it, and now they don't want to let them come back to even live in that country. So they've diaspored about 4.5 million Palestinians, and I think that the Jewish policies have been terrible, and they keep the Mideast embroiled all the time because of their refusal to allow the Palestinians to have a proper type of operation. And Hamas and those guys are not any better. I mean, I'm no fan of either side. I mean, I'll tell you that right now. I'm not a fan of either side. I think these guys need to wake up that they don't have to, these stupid, and let me quote, you can quote me, these stupid Christian and Muslim religions that believe in these prophets of the past. These are old religions that are thousands of years old. It's now a matter of physics. Logic says if you want to find God, all you got to do is look in the mirror. I mean, you take people away and you don't have no reason for a universe, and if you don't have a universe, you don't have a God. And so people are basically each one's a little slice of the Almighty. And for me, I'm a monistic pantheist. I believe everybody's God, and I try to treat them as such. Do unto the others as you would have them to do unto you, because they are you. And we just need to get these barbarian states out, and we need to get on with having a world government, but not the kind proposed by the New World Order.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm totally anti the New World Order.
I forgot.
But I am. Huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot this, but I saw Ramsey Clark on your email list the other day. How did you connect with that fellow?
I've been connected with Ramsey since 1967.
Oh, wow.
When I was at the White House, he was Attorney General, and I got the task of kicking the shit out of Garrison and making him into. I thought I put him on the ash heap of history until Oliver Stone came and took his ashes and remolded them into the JFK movie. So, and don't think that just because Jim Marr's book is where the movie was taken from, that Jim and I don't agree that who did it, and it isn't the CIA. As far as I'm concerned, the CIA is a bunch of Eagle Scouts. They don't go around murdering people, and I've never known them to be murderers. Yes, they bought contracts, but the CIA is not a bunch of killers.
Yeah.
The the CIA that I've known have been the most ethical, honorable, patriotic men I've ever known. And the rest of the government, as far as I'm concerned, is mostly a joke, and that includes much of the military.
So Garrison was just out in left field then, huh?
He was totally full of it. I mean, he was cutting the case out of whole cloth, and he was weaving the cloth, and he was weaving the yarn and cutting the cloth, and he needed to be exposed. And I, as his chief of security, which is the job that I got while I was still working for the White House to expose him, I exposed him because he was. I didn't care about him trying to make a case. I mean, that's irrelevant. That was not the point. The point was the case he made was against people who had nothing to do with it. I mean, if he can take his chief of security and charge him as being his most important material witness, and I was his chief of security for the case, and then make me his most important material witness and cause me the grief he did, he was just totally full of crap.
Yeah, he's just desperate, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, he was fabricating evidence. I caught him faking letters to Oswald from Shaw and all of that on Shaw's typewriter, and I exposed the hell out of him, and he decided he was going to bury me, and he tried to bury me, and he found out, you know, you can dig the hole, but I go in kicking and screaming, and I generally will bring you in with me if that's what you want to do. You want to play that game, I'll bring you in the hole with me if you're hell-bent on putting me in the hole.
Well, if it wasn't the CIA, who did it then? I never... It was the Mafia.
Oh, it's elementary, old chap. It's who did it, who had the power to cover it up. And the Nazis, the old Gehlen organization, which is still functional all over the world. The Nazis didn't go away when they lost World War II. They just took their money and hid it all over the place. And many of them fled, as you know. They went all over the world, but the intelligence people disappeared, and Kamler and guys like that disappeared, and they kept their organization in place and decentralized the hell out of it like the old MI6 used to be, and they set it up all over the world, and they've been constantly running fascism. Mars's new book is called The Nazification of America. And it's all about how we have become a quasi-fascist military police state.
Well, that makes sense. So you're saying that these old relic World War II guys are they did Kennedy, huh? I don't know. I wouldn't have seen that one.
I just said that the Gehlen organization was the guys who engineered it and funded it, and Majestic had a hand in it because Kennedy was up their ass over getting the alien technology released and getting the landing at Roswell exposed, and one thing and another, and they were totally opposed to him, and so they sanctioned his murder, and the FBI covered it up, and the mob did a bunch of it, and the Gehlen org did the planning.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're raising a point that no one's wanted to look at, but this Nazi Bell story brought me back to the same place, which is, after World War II, right? I mean, the story that the fairy tale has been that we beat the Nazis and they went away forever and ever, and everybody had a happy ending. But the reality is, you got a lot of loose ends that don't match up, and so the Gehlen organization, I mean, hell, sounds to me like as good an explanation as any, because this Nazi Bell thing, right? Hans Kammler, it just disappeared. And then you have to ask, where'd it go? Things don't disappear.
Well, a lot of it went into paperclip and into the Russians. I mean, the Russians beat us to the orbit because they had a lot of the German technology really down, and Tchaikovsky's was assisted mightily by many of the Peenemünde crowd and from the missile operations of the Germans, and we got a lot of it, and the Russians got a lot of it, and the Russians were smart, and they went for big throw lift, and so when it came time to orbit something, they had the capability of putting Sputnik up and following it with Laika and the astronauts, so with Gagarin, and so I'm an admirer of the Russians from a standpoint of being, they're really good as engineers. They believe that better is the enemy of good enough, and they know how to make things happen with nothing, and they're very, very good people. And I'm a grand admirer. In fact, I like I like everybody. Culturally, I I think that it's like the Jews that furnish more bright people than anybody else. Than more Nobel Prizes given out to Jews than anybody on the earth. That's because they're the smartest. But collectively, for the numbers of people that they have, which is minuscule compared to the rest of the planet. But the world, this is a good world. It just needs to get out of being a terrestrial, backward, barbarian state and murderous state. And we need to get away from paying where every dollar you shell out. I mean, people don't realize out here in California, they're shelling out 80% of their income for gasoline, and now they're having to shell out more.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you.
Well, yeah, because I mean,
we got an Expedition V8, the wife's truck, right? Because after September 11th, she started freaking out about her car. She was like, I won't ride in a car. They're made out of thin metal. She went into this whole deal about I want to get a big truck like my daddy has. So we went out and bought her an Expedition. It's got the Ford was it 302, and we're putting I don't know, $70 a week into that thing in gas.
Well, the 80 cents of every dollar you spend, no matter what you spend it on. And I say this: if you go to a cat house, you're paying the life support for the prostitute, and it's 80 cents out of every dollar that goes out of your pocket is going out for energy in one form or another, because it takes that energy to put that bread there. It takes that energy to put the Stampex there. It takes the energy to put to put the food on your table. It takes the energy to put your car there. There isn't a thing that we have that we operate that isn't paid for by energy, and the energy is coming from oil, coal, gas, and nuclear. Well, I'm a fan of nuclear. I think that was one of the greater mistakes that we ever made, was going for the environmental crap of not doing nuclear. France drives its entire utility industry with nuclear, and it works fine. And they haven't had any accidents. All this 3 Mile Island horse crap about the Jane Fonda games, they don't resonate with me. And so I'm just saying to you that I am not a fan of a civilization that the bankers rob the people every day by promulgating the petrochemical businesses, when it's Area 51, the alien technology is not under control of our government. It's under control of the Bilderbergers and the Illuminati. And until they are forced by me or others to release that technology and whiteworld that technology, they're going to continue to drain us, because those banks live like kings. And the whole banking system is totally dependent upon keeping these bogus energy businesses in place. This planet, that if Eisenhower had a good shot when he met with the aliens to take this planet and move it forward, but he was married to having his nukes, and he was married to his friggin' religions, because he didn't want to destabilize these religions, because they have such immense political power. And they need to go out. They've gone out with high button shoes. Christ was a good guy, but look how many people have died in his name. And between him and Muhammad, I don't know who's been responsible for more murder. So, they say what they want, but the war of the Crusaders is exactly still going on.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Well, and then you had Stalin and the atheists who complained about this and then wiped out another 10 million.
Well, they're equally bad, because anytime you can't understand that it's so simple. I mean, people keep looking for God. He's in you. I mean, everything around you is God. It all belongs to it. It created it. So, you're a part of it, and you need to recognize that. And like I said, one of the real gripes that I have with Christianity is this do unto others as they would have them do unto you. Not because you want to do it to them before they do it to you, but because they are you.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to do a Dan Smith on you and tell you that I'm anywhere near related to being the Messiah, because I'm anti-messianic. I mean, so I guess that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, it makes
I
sense.
think everybody's Christ,
Yeah, you're saying everybody's the Messiah. Well, I don't know. I don't want to sound ignorant. I know I am kind of this issue, but I don't understand how Galen is mixed up with Kennedy at all.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I said I don't want to sound ignorant, but I just don't understand how Galen is mixed up with Kennedy. I don't get what their motives were.
Well, their motives were one of their motives was making money off of it. They made a ton of money
because of the war, right?
Yeah, they sold short. There was some really heavy duty, like in 9/11. There was some heavy duty short selling, so which I don't want to comment on because I don't want to comment on that,
But no, it makes sense. And so, but you could track this back to the people who did it by who profited.
Yeah, you can track it back that way, and it was well known around the White House that Hoover was going to be fired once Kennedy got into the second term. Hoover hated his guts. The old faggot wanted he didn't like the let's call it the meanderings of the president in terms of his sex habits, and he was. I mean, I'm the guy who put the dress on Hoover, so I don't think much of J. Edgar Hoover and his FBI. I think the FBI under Robert Mueller, it's the first time that I've ever seen them operate like they should operate, like they did under Clarence Kelly and folks like that. It's been one Clarence Kelly and Robert Mueller are the only great directors the FBI's ever had.
Oh, I didn't know. So you were the one who broke the story about Hoover then?
That's right.
Because it probably a rumor before that, right? But you were I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I did it on PBS Frontline. I did a special on J. Edgar Hoover, and I admitted that I had the pictures and all the rest of that. So,
much to his consternation.
It didn't register real well with the boys. So I was not. The Bureau has caused me a ton of grief, and I've caused them a ton of grief, and they earned it.
Well, see, this is one of my questions though, because Kennedy was a risk taker, right? I mean, he was a guy who played chicken with the Russians in the Cuban Missile Crisis. He nearly lost his shirt in the Bay of Pigs. He bet long on Apollo, and then there was the thing with Marilyn Monroe. So my question is, if he hadn't have gone away, right, with his assassination, would his presidency have been destroyed with some kind of scandal? I mean, right? How would he have been able to avoid that?
Well, I don't think that anybody was going to scandalize him. I mean, Marilyn wasn't going to scandalize him, and so who was going to scandalize him? For what? For taking painkillers? I mean, that's a joke, and I'm just not I haven't been a fan of the assassination of the president. I liked him. I thought he was one of the better Democratic presidents. He was the most charismatic Democratic president we've ever had.
Well, what about Monroe then? Because she was taking painkillers, right? Or were you talking about him?
Oh, who cares? So what?
Oh, I'm just trying to figure out what happened with her then. Was that connected?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a fan of the book Operation Double Cross. So, that to me is accurate.
Yeah, this is weird, but I mean, again, the work that you've done, right, as private investigator too. I mean, Paul Price had said, one of the things I should ask you about is, John DeLorean hired you to find the casts for his cars, which I guess
I did more than that. I'm the one guy who got him out of all of this trouble because I wrecked the government's case.
Yeah, I guess they were sunk off the coast of Ireland or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, that's pretty scandalous,
Yeah, I did. I had more fun. John was a great guy. He was one of the great men of the 20th century, and the 20th and 21st century until he died. He was one of my favorite. He was my best friend.
Yeah, and then there was let me see. Oh, G. Gordon Liddy. This was Paul Price also. He mentioned this one. He said G. Gordon Liddy asked you to develop a degaussing gun for the Nixon tapes.
No, it wasn't Liddy. It was Colson.
Oh, it was. I'm sorry, Colt. You said
Colson.
Colson.
Charles Colson.
Yeah.
President's chief consultant or chief whatever he was.
Yeah, and then more recently, he also mentioned. He said that you did. And I guess this is probably more public knowledge that you were the person who worked for the Michael Jackson case to show that the child's mother had been extorting money from other actors and actresses.
Yeah, well, I don't want to brag about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad to see Michael was acquitted because he was being framed. Whether he's a pedophile or not, it's not my business. I don't know, and I don't think anybody can, other than he's paid out $20 million to avoid a civil action, so that says something. And it seemed to me you'd go to trial for $20 million.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one, but I mean, this is so. Paul Price had described you. In fact, he said many people describe you as the greatest living private investigator in the world. But I mean, I thought, when I was writing my interview questions, I thought, well, wait a minute, greatest living. I mean, who would compare historically? So I think it's possible that you're the world's greatest private investigator. Period. Without sounding like a brown noser, but.
Well, I appreciate the compliment, but my skills in investigating are deductive reasoning and a lot of science. So I'm rather steeped in physics and science, and contrary to what Sarfati might say, I understand physics. I always argue to him. I said if Otto Diesel in 1904 had received a set of plans of a German Jumo jet engine, a single compressor stage jet engine, and he had been told how it functions in terms of the gases only coming out the pipe. All he had to do was know that the gases came out the pipe, and he wouldn't have needed Albert Einstein to show him how to read those plans. He could have done it himself, and if he'd had a sufficiently smart lathe operator, he could have probably made the parts and built one. But you don't need to be a physicist or to have a PhD to do UFO research. You've got the engineering drawings, you can deduct the function. If you've got the function, then the physics follows, and the physics is not as we understand it. I mean, gravity comes from zero time. It's from a fifth dimension that has no time in it, and a vortex that causes everything to spin.
Well,
so if you can stop the vortex, you can stop the gravity.
I mean, the advantage too is you're able to pull in the resources, that other people can't. I mean, other people, they may know one or two people, one or two engineers. They have a little bit here and there, but I mean, you've got this tremendous network that you can draw on to reverse engineer this thing.
Get something to eat somewhere. Okay, let's go do it. Go ahead. Well, the 84 World's Fair was my creation. The Bourbon Street Pavilion at the New York World's Fair, which is the state of Louisiana's pavilion, was my creation. I built that when I was 22, and I got the 84 World's Fair going when I was 38. So, I'm not just a detective. I'm an industrialist who's had to make a living as a detective because the government kept hammering the hell out of me constantly. So the only thing I could do to make a living was to take them on. The best way to take them on was take cases like DeLorean, do some foreign intelligence stuff that I've done that I don't brag about, and which I still get offers to do foreign intelligence operations. I don't do it anymore, and but it was a way to make a living because the government was up my ass, and they didn't want to back off, and they were kind enough to take my ex-wife and turn her against me and keep me from seeing my kids for the better part of 2 decades. So when every child I got, I went after them. And sort of Count of Monte Cristo. You fool with me, and you got nothing to do with the rest of your life. Go ahead and pick a fight. I got nothing to do with it. I like to be an implacable, unrelenting, tenacious foe, and I believe that if you just are committed and you're not afraid of dying, you can tilt with them. I mean, how many FBI agents could they put through a door at one time? As fast as they come through the door, I take their names, I read them their rights, and tell them, hey, I'll see you in federal court. And they know I know how to prepare petitions in propria personam. And I've got an army of lawyers that are friends, and they know if coming around to bother me is an expensive proposition for the government and an embarrassing proposition. So I'm not exactly, if anything, what makes me good is at doing this is because I am not afraid of the retaliation that comes from doing it, and because I know how to retaliate myself. You got to give ass to get ass. Huh? No, I'm out. I just ran out. I just went through the pack. So, that's where I am. I think that the technology ought to be restored to the office of the Director of National Intelligence. They tell me he was MJ1, and I don't care because I know he wasn't. I don't have any bad things to say about the director. I think he's a great guy, and he's a good Navy guy, and he's all right. So I don't have any beef with them, and I don't have any beef with CIA about it. And I think that we ought to be back in control of that technology because we could make the terrorism thing go away. All you have to do is tell them Arabs stop funding terrorists. You're going to drink the oil, and that gets rid of that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. One of the other problems, too, is with a lot of this energy research, some of the more mundane stuff, but I know of at least 2 or 3 little fusion programs that have been shut down because all of this money is going into the war. And so not only are we paying for a war based on this energy, but it's taken away from the solutions to the energy, right? Because nobody can get funded.
It's a war of genocide. We've killed 600,000 Iraqis who were living pretty well, and Baghdad was not a bad place to go when under Saddam Hussein, and the trial of Saddam Hussein was a charade of charades. It was about as legal as it was a total criminal process. I mean, when you kill the defense lawyers, kill 2 of his defense lawyers, and you tell me he got a fair trial and that those judges weren't biased and prejudiced for the Shias, it's just a joke. There wasn't a Sunni judge on the panel, and that's just the way it is. And I mean, I'm not a fan of the administration. I think personally, I am a fan of Judge Garbazon, the French, the Spanish judge who extradited Pinochet. I think that they ought to be tried as war criminals because that's what they are. They've murdered 600,000 people in the name of the United States of America. And excuse me, I got a little blood on my hands from sharing. You divide 280 million, so you end up with about a sixth of a human being's blood on everybody. Every human being walking around has killed a sixth of an Iraqi. So in America, and I don't like that. I think that's barbaric and backward, just evil and cruel, mean and stupid. There's nothing gained from that war. We've gained nothing. We've increased terrorism by exponentially, and all we've done is kill off good Americans and put them through that meat grinder. And anytime you have a society that has suicide bombers by the hundreds that are willing to blow themselves up just to kill innocent people, you're in a no-win war.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, when my brother's group went over to Iraq, they talked a lot different than they talk now. It sounds a hell of a lot like Vietnam. That's what it sounds like.
Well, it is Vietnam. It's Bush's Vietnam, and now he's going to have he's got the problem of it. And I'm not. I used to be a fan of George Bush, and now the George W. And now I think to be blunt with you, somebody needs to be impeached. And I'm a fan of impeachment, and I'm a fan of war crime trials for Cheney at a minimum.
Well, I mean,
So,
the thing that bothers me about the war with the 9 guys that my brothers lost, and again, his unit had lost people before this, but it was always one or two, and it was in firefights kind of a thing, and lately when they got repositioned in Diyala, and now it's IEDs. I think all 9 of these guys have been IEDs, and it's random. It's not like you're, you know. Capturing a base, it's not any of this romantic military crap. It's just hey, you're walking down the street, you step in the wrong place, or maybe you're driving and you drive through the wrong area, and bam, you're gone. That's tough. I mean, that's tough to justify.
well, the IEDs are being supplied by that huge cache of explosives we allowed them to get, and they got it. And so, that's the problem. We should have never gone there. We should have never. We did the right thing. We went to Afghanistan to clean out Al Qaeda and do that, but nobody will convince me that they can't get Osama bin Laden. Christ, this government, if it's a mind to, can find a roach in a rainforest of Brazil. So, I think it's all charade.
Well, do you think so?
Charade.
I mean, a lot of the September 11th conspiracy type crowd think that they can't catch him because if they did, he might spill the beans about something.
Well, probably true.
Yeah.
Probably true. Well, is this about? Are we about to the end of this interview?
Oh yeah. I think we're all set. Well, I want to say thank you yet again, Gordon, and good luck with your projects, and let's stay in touch.
All right. Be good.
Thanks.